All right. Hey, YouTube. I guess for now I'll call myself the speechwriter. I have a channel called Soapbox Moments Inc. And though I was definitely planning to not come on here until essentially I had a better presentation to give you all, I felt like certain comments and over a certain situation kind of needed someone else to put a different perspective on this that isn't really being heard. And I'll say particularly when it comes to the Moses Ingram situation. Now, I, up to this point, have watched all the episodes of Kenobi, like most who are supposed to be Star Wars fans have. Mind you, probably by the time this comes out, the 4th episode may be there. And I'll be the first to say that, yeah, there are a few plot points that are definitely issues with the series that don't necessarily make sense. You know, no, I'm not really looking to go into all of them now. But I will say this. I will concede that even Reva, as a character in and of itself, has some issues when it comes to the writing and what the plot points they're using the character to progress in the story. However, it's funny how the day I thought to myself, given how things went after episode 3 of Kenobi, I thought to myself, maybe I should look into her Twitter page. You know, up to this point I haven't really found one or what have you, but I feel like after episode 3 it wouldn't surprise me if certain people are at her, you know, in that certain way. So I'll just get right to my point. Now, it's one thing to criticize a character or a character portrayal or the plot of where they're going, you know, based on the trajectory of what the show is trying to portray the person and who they are. It's one thing to do that, but it's another to go beyond that, to essentially call her outside her name and particularly say that she's nothing more than a diversity hire, which, to be blunt and honest, is still really another way of saying you're still a nigger. I'll just put that out there now, that to us and to our community and my community as a black man and a black person in general, that's basically what it means when someone says you're, well, one of a couple of things. One, you're a diversity hire, meaning that the only reason you're in whatever position or whatever vocation you're in, whether it be career or position on a sports team or what have you, is because you check the box based only on what you look like. In other words, you don't qualify to be in this position, which is basically another way further than that to say you were too stupid to be here. We just, you know, needed to check some quotas to show that we feel sorry for all of you people that don't fit the typical archetype of what the dominant society is. So that's one thing. And then to call her outside her name to the, as we call it, the magic word, that's a whole nother can of worms. But it's honestly a can of worms that's similar to a YouTuber that not that many years ago I used to follow, and then not that many more recent years later unfollowed. And I'm sure you've heard of the YouTuber Just Some Guy. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a direct supporter of Just Some Guy at all. You know, and that could be a whole nother video on obvious reasons. I'm not really a supporter of JSG. However, I will say that with the narrative that he supported when it came to his issues, I guess dealing with defending pseudo skit, about, the alphabet community coming after your children, and the people who were a part of that, or some choir skit or what have you, half of them being registered sex offenders. Not exactly the hill you want to die on, so it's kind of like he's getting his comeuppance, at least when it comes to that. But I did notice that within the controversy dealing with him, that I saw that there's a thing called an N-word wall, might as well say a nigger wall, where people in your live stream basically spell out each letter of the magic word to basically remind you of what you are, particularly when you don't fit the narrative or the aesthetic or the precept of the dominant society, which is predominantly white. As soon as you go against that narrative, you're reduced back down to your base person and all the typical and even historical, in our case, vitriol that comes with it. So I'll just say this. The thing I find interesting that the Moses Ingram situation has in common, even though I admit it's a different situation than just some guys, is the moment they are either in a position to or speak against a narrative that bears a certain amount of vitriol against them, even if some of it's justified, there's still a special seasoning given. There's still a special sauce given, particularly to my community, to basically remind them of who they are. That at the end of the day, your tail is still black. And that shouldn't really be surprising to anyone. I didn't even know what an N-word wall was until I just happened to watch a couple of videos on his situation. But at the same time, I'll work from Moses Ingram, from the Moses Ingram situation down. When I would tell Moses, because I know she gave off a statement of these DMs that were in her Instagram page or what have you, that there are hundreds of those, which could be an exaggeration, could be not. I seriously doubt it, because, we're not going to make up that crap for craps and giggles for sympathy points, because no one wants to be called outside their name, and that's toward this. I would tell Moses, two things. One, don't say that there's nothing you can do. Don't. There's always something that can be done, even if it's not by law. You can at least, if nothing else, you can at least do one thing, and that's call it out for what it is. It's not those guys being weird, which is what she said at the end of her post. It's not those guys being strange or that part of the fandom being strange. No, you guys who are doing that are being racist. And yeah, I know it was a certain few people, and no, it doesn't cover the entire fandom when it comes to direct criticism, objective criticism of the series or her character. However, at the same time, the anti-black sentiment that's conveyed in that is something that I think we as a community, and which deals with another thing, people of color, and I'm not really much for the people of color box, not because other communities don't experience racism, the way I know I've heard Kelly Marie Tran received not that many years ago, and not that hers isn't awful and doesn't count, but I will say this, that at the same time, there's always been historically a special flavor given toward us as soon as we go against the narrative, or to some degree stand up for ourselves, even if what we're standing up for isn't legitimate. Whether we're right in our stance or wrong in our stance, at the end of the day, there's still that reminder that your tail is black, that we in the community would call your ninja wake-up call. And I will say with Moses, call it out for what it is, that the DMs you received were anti-black racism and anti-black sentiment because you went against the narrative of what works within their bubble. even though you're only playing a role in a part, much less those who aren't adult enough to differentiate from a character and the person in real life. But the funny thing is, that deals with every part of our society, particularly in this country, as far as whether you're playing a part in a fictional universe for entertainment, whether you're a star athlete, whether you're the part owner of a basketball team, paying the very security that won't let you by. Everyone, to one degree or another, will get that ninja wake-up call to remind them that this is who you are. Because historically, that's what we've always been. We've always been the one that we'd rather you not belong here. And if you're gonna belong here, you're going to follow our narrative, which I'll just say it is a white supremacist narrative. Period. Now, to that extent, I'll just say this. With the exception of certain ones like your boy Roshi or the Double Toasted channel, for the most part, I'm kind of calling out the other black YouTube creators, particularly the ones whose whole niche much less react to, much less follow any of the Star Wars movies or TV shows, because I hear a lot of softball strikes to what should be a blatant outcry to say, no, what Moses Ingram experienced, like certain others, was anti-black racist sentiment. Because just them being in the role, much less if they have something to say, deals with them going against the narrative of the dominant society. It's not about them being people of color. It's not about it's not about one particular YouTuber, black YouTuber, I'd say. It's not about being brown, because I don't know when we started to be afraid to say black, because that's what we are. This particular YouTuber, kind of small time, but at the same time, he was several shades darker than I am, but yet continue to make it a point to go out of his way to say brown for himself, brown for his family, or what have you. Nah, bruh, you're black. And the society will always have a way to remind you of exactly who you are and its place and its vocation, you know? And so, yeah, shouts out to the one who were willing to open up and call it what it is, and shouts out to the ones who weren't black, who had certain things to say about how wrong that is. Now, to those even within the fandom menace that would say, you know, well, you know, you're gonna get criticized on the internet, just suck it up or what have you. You know, it's basically another way of saying, well, people are gonna be racist. Just tolerate a certain monicum of racism. Tolerate a certain level of